Đó cái muốn vui sống và cái cô hít
911, what's your emergency? I called a little bit ago, the deputy sheriff. I found out my granddaughter has been taken. She has been missing for a month. We're talking about a 3-year-old little girl. There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
Okay, what is the 3-year-old's name?
Caylee, Caylee, Anthony.
Caylee Anthony?
Yes.
The search for missing Caylee Anthony may be coming to a very sad end. Prosecutors in Florida now say it's beginning to look like she was murdered.
Detectives say a neighbor remembered Anthony asking to borrow a shovel around the time her daughter went missing.
Quote, "It smells like something died in my car," Casey told her.
But the fact that she lied for 31 days after her daughter goes missing.
The apartment where she claimed she dropped Caylee off, vacant. And that babysitter, a phantom.
Casey, you have to tell me if you know anything about Caylee.
Sweetheart,
if anything happens with Caylee, Casey, I'll die. You understand? I'll die. If anything happens to that baby.
Oh my God. Calling you guys, a waste. Huge waste.
She didn't act like a regular mother where, oh, they found my daughter and she's dead. Crying, bawling. No. Her behavior at that time was like, oh, I got caught.
Little Caylee may have been placed in those bags, triple bagged like she's trash, duct taped, but still alive.
This case has stirred deep emotions here in Orlando.
The trial continues to captivate people following online and on television.
As to the charge of first-degree murder, verdict as to count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
After that not guilty verdict, somewhere out there, the devil is dancing tonight.
Well, hello. My name is Chris, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I would like to revisit a devastating yet infamous case that I, as well as many others, have always been passionate about, even 16 years later. The unsolved murder of 3-year-old Caylee Anthony. However, instead of just retelling the story, as many others on YouTube have already done so well, I want to particularly focus on her mother's disturbing behaviors, despite her being found innocent in a court of law. In fact, I've gathered 100 of her alleged lies and will point them out throughout the timeline. Despite the countless hours I have put into this, so much that I've dreamt about it night after night, I just need to remind you that I am not a professional, just a woman with a laptop. Please do your own research if you wish, and leave your opinions and theories down below, as I would love to hear them. With so much focus being on Casey in this case, I just want people to remember this little girl, and that someone harmed her and took her life and got away with it. Caylee Anthony's questionable behavior is alive and well long before the case. You will see the pattern of willful ignorance this family exudes as parents George and Cindy sweep their daughter's red flags under the rug time and time again. George is a former sheriff's deputy, now going through a slew of odd jobs, and Cindy is a registered nurse. It is safe to say that their marriage has been a rocky one. George's ex-wife prior to Cindy claims that George is a pathological liar. We will inevitably run into some of Cindy's lies as well. The apple certainly does not fall far from the tree here. Casey tells her parents she is graduating high school, when in reality, she has dropped out. During the ceremony, friends and peers wonder why she isn't walking with the other graduates. Casey claims that the school had made a mistake, but she was indeed still getting her diploma. George and Cindy go along with this charade and proceed with Casey's graduation party, where she accepts gifts. This surely sets the tone for how the rest of the story unfolds. Are George and Cindy just in deep denial, too exhausted to confront the lies, or perhaps even afraid of their own daughter? 18-year-old Casey is pregnant, but telling no one, including her current boyfriend, Jesse Grund, who she recently met while working for Kodak at Universal Studios. Casey somehow hides the pregnancy until she is around her 3rd trimester. When questioned about her weight gain, Casey says she is not pregnant, but just retaining water. In fact, Caylee claims she is still a virgin. When Jesse finally gets the truth out of her, Caylee tells Jesse that he is the father. However, her pregnancy is farther along than the relationship timeframe, and Jesse knows this. Caylee Marie Anthony is born on August 9, 2005. A paternity test shows that Jesse is not the father. Despite this, Jesse adores baby Caylee and is willing to adopt her and be the father figure she needs. Jesse proposes to Caylee, and all seems well, until their engagement is called off in May of 2006. But why? Jesse says Caylee has changed, that her behavior has gotten far more erratic, and that Caylee is upset that Jesse loves Caylee more than he loves her. Caylee tells her parents that Caylee's biological father is actually a man named Eric Baker. Caylee claims that Eric had tragically died in a car accident. Eric Baker's existence is never proven. Meanwhile, Caylee convinces everyone that she is still working at Universal Studios. However, she no longer does. In addition to that, Caylee claims to have a second job at Sports Authority. Her father George goes to the store to surprise Caylee one day and possibly take her to lunch. But Sports Authority employees confirm that Caylee does not work there and never has. If she's not working, then where is she all day? And what is she doing? She keeps up the Universal Studios charade though. In fact, Caylee tells her parents that Universal has given her a promotion. Caylee claims to be an event planner who needs to go on business trips from time to time. She creates fake emails, sends them to herself, and presents them to her parents. Caylee also claims to be dating a man named Jeffrey Hopkins. Caylee says that Jeff is quite wealthy and works for Nickelodeon at Universal Studios. Caylee explains that Jeff has a son named Zachary, who is Caylee's age, and that the two of them often play together. Caylee tells them about Jeff's mother named Jules, and that she has cancer. The Anthonys prepare a dinner and even bake a dessert in anticipation of meeting this Jeff and Jules. But at the very last minute, Caylee tells George and Cindy that Jeff's son is sick and that they can't make it. Caylee not only continues to lie to people around her, she is stealing from them as well. Caylee claims that her paychecks are locked inside the office at Universal and that her boss is out of town. Caylee starts using Cindy's credit card behind her back. She steals a check from her grandmother to pay for Caylee's second birthday party in August of 2007. She drains the bank account that her father created for Caylee and takes money from her grandfather's nursing home fund. Caylee even steals from her daughter Caylee's piggy bank. Caylee assures Cindy that she is indeed paying her back and shows her the deposit slips. The deposit slips are fake. Caylee has stolen over $40,000 from her parents. Cindy's financial advisor suggests that she takes custody of her granddaughter Caylee. Internet searches are made within the Anthony home on March 17th and March 21st of 2008. The searches include alcohol, acetone, peroxide, chloroform, how to make chloroform, inhalation, chest trauma, neck breaking, internal bleeding, household weapons, making weapons out of household products, self-defense, shovel, and death. During the summer of 2008, Caylee, now 22, starts dating a DJ named Tony Lazzaro, unbeknownst to Cindy and George. Tony does not want children, and allegedly would only settle for a boy. Caylee tells her friend Amy that she is getting the Anthony house, and that Amy should move in with her. When this same friend Amy needs a ride to Jacksonville to get a new car, Caylee tells Amy that her dad almost had a stroke, so she unfortunately could not take her. On June 15, 2008, Cindy takes Caylee to visit her great-grandfather in his nursing home for Father's Day. That evening at the Anthony home, Caylee and Cindy get into a fight over the theft that becomes loud and physical. Cindy had discovered and printed out photos from Caylee's social media of her partying when she said she was working. She calls Caylee an unfit mother and tells her she needs to move out. Caylee, however, was staying. Cindy allegedly puts her hands around Caylee's neck during this confrontation. A detective who later questions the neighbors claims, "I talked to one of the immediate neighbors that is within earshot of the Anthony house, and he said that Caylee Anthony had one hell of a temper, and he heard her swearing at her mother several times, so loud that he could hear it from his house." Cindy denies that this fight ever happened. The next morning, on June 16, 2008, Cindy has left for work. George claims that he, Caylee, and Caylee watched diners, drive-ins, and dives while Caylee and Caylee prepare to leave with backpacks. TV guides later confirm that the show was indeed on at this time. Casey tells George that she is taking Caylee to Zanny's. Zanny is the nickname given to Caylee's nanny, Zenaida, who George and Cindy have yet to meet, because she does not exist. Casey tells George that they may spend the night at Zanny's because she has to work late. Caylee allegedly tells George, "I'm going to see Zanny." George walks them outside, straps Caylee into her car seat, and waves goodbye. Caylee blows her JoJo one last kiss as the two drive away in Casey's white Pontiac Sunfire. This is allegedly the last time Caylee Anthony is seen alive by anyone other than her mother. Casey makes some phone calls from the car, including one to her ex-fiancé, Jesse. Casey tells Jesse that her parents are getting a divorce due to her father's infidelity, and that she needs a place to stay. Jesse is sure he hears Caylee in the background. After George leaves for work, Casey circles back to the Anthony home. Cell phone pings confirm that she is back at the house. The Anthony's computer is activated by someone using a password-protected account belonging to Casey, and foolproof suffocation is typed into a search engine. MySpace is accessed right after this, which only Casey uses at the time. More phone calls are made from the house, including 4 calls to Cindy at work nearly back-to-back, which all go unanswered. And then Casey turns her phone off for a couple of hours. That evening, Casey and Tony are seen on Blockbuster surveillance. Caylee is not with them. Casey tells Tony that Caylee is at Zanny's. One of the movies they rent that night is Jumper, in which a mother abandons her 5-year-old child. Another is Untraceable, in which an FBI agent opens the trunk of a car and is overcome by the smell of a rotting corpse inside. Casey is now staying with Tony and his roommates. Casey tells a roommate's girlfriend, Maria Kish, that she pays Zanny $400 a week to watch Caylee. 2 days later, on June 18th, George and Cindy are both at work. Casey calls George at work, then arrives at the Anthony home and asks to borrow a shovel from neighbor Brian Berner. Casey tells Brian that she needs the shovel to dig up a bamboo root she has been tripping over. George has multiple shovels in his shed, but he keeps the shed locked. Brian accounts that Casey took the shovel into the Anthony's garage, with her Sunfire backed up into it, which he had never seen her do before. Casey returns the shovel about an hour later and does not appear dirty or sweaty. Casey's cell phone is also off for an unusual period of time this day. What is happening that is causing her to break her routine? Later, Casey tells Cindy she is at a work convention with Jeff Hopkins at the Hard Rock Hotel. Casey continues to tell her that her next work destination is Tampa. Casey also claims to be accompanied by co-worker Juliette Lewis, and of course Zanny and Zanny's roommate Raquel, who are watching Caylee, when in reality, Casey is at Tony's without Caylee. A slew of excuses ensue over the next couple of weeks, as Cindy tries to contact her daughter and her granddaughter. On June 20th, Casey is captured in various photos partying at Fusion nightclub, where she infamously participates in their hot body contest. On June 21st, Cindy is concerned that Caylee may need more clothes and supplies, as the two had left nearly everything at the Anthony home. Casey assures Cindy that Zanny took Caylee shopping and had bought her a whole new wardrobe. On June 23rd, to stall further, Casey tells Cindy that Zanny and Raquel have gotten into an accident while driving home and were taken to Tampa General Hospital. Casey says that Zanny has a concussion, is vomiting, has a fractured rib, and a laceration behind her ear. In reality, Casey's Sunfire runs out of gas. Tony takes her to the Anthony home while her parents are at work, and the two break into George's shed to take some of his gas cans. The next day, George notices the missing gas cans and calls the police to report it. Later that day, Casey stops by the Anthony home to get clothes. According to George, Casey says to him, "It's a shame what happened in the shed." George confronts Casey about the gas cans and tries to look into Casey's trunk to investigate, but Casey does not let him. She slides in front of him, quickly grabs the cans, and throws them on the ground. The next day, Casey tells Cindy that she had driven back to Orlando to get Zanny's insurance papers, as she was still in the hospital in Tampa. Casey claims that she has a key to Zanny's apartment. Casey tells Amy over the phone that she thinks her dad ran something over when he borrowed her car, because it smells like something died. On June 27th, Casey texts Amy, "There was definitely part of a dead animal plastered to the frame of my car." When asked about Caylee, Casey tells Amy that Zanny has taken Caylee to the beach for the weekend. and that Cindy is meeting them there. In reality, Casey's car runs out of gas a second time, and she claims she has no money to refill. Casey claims that kind citizens help her push the car into a parking space at an Amscott Financial. The Amscott has numerous security cameras, yet none of them have this alleged event recorded. Tony picks Casey up. Casey tells Tony she will deal with the car later. Casey abandons the Sunfire, with both her and Caylee's belongings still inside, despite there being a Chevron gas station and a Sam's Club, both neighboring the Amscott. On June 30th, Casey tells Cindy that Caylee is spending the week at Universal with a woman named Jennifer Rosa. In reality, Casey is dropping Tony off at the airport, as he is going to visit family in New York. Casey uses Tony's vehicle while he is gone all week. On July 1st, Casey is staying with Amy while Tony is away. One morning, Amy notices that she is missing $400. Casey tells Amy that she saw her sleepwalking the night prior with the money and that Amy said that she was putting it somewhere safe. Casey gets her nails done and uses Cindy's credit card to pay for the service. Cindy calls Casey this night 8 times, and all calls go unanswered. Casey then gets the infamous Bella Vita tattoo, which translates to beautiful life in Italian. Casey tells her tattoo artist that her daughter is with the nanny. Casey claims she will bring Caylee with her for her next appointment, which is already scheduled. On July 3rd, Cindy is taking time off of work and goes to Universal, hoping to meet up with Caylee, but to no avail. Casey tells Cindy that there was a last-second change of plans, and that her and Caylee were now going to see Jeff Hopkins in Jacksonville. Cindy goes home and calls the police. Just kidding. Cindy goes home and creates a MySpace account. Her mood is distraught, and her post is titled, "My Caylee is Missing." The daughter who stole money, lots of money, leaves without warning. Where did she go? Who is now watching out for our little angel? On July 4th, Cindy wants to know if Casey and Caylee can come over and watch the fireworks. Casey tells Cindy that they are still with Jeff. In fact, Casey says she wants to further rekindle her romance with Jeff, when in reality, Casey's with her friends this 4th of July weekend, still without Caylee. Casey tells friends that Caylee is with Zanny at SeaWorld. An acquaintance named Melissa England claims Casey tells her friend over the phone that she cannot pick her up because she has a flat tire. Casey throws the phone on the dashboard and says, "Oh my God, I'm such a good liar." Casey tells a friend that she is getting a house with her best friend who also has kids, and that she wants Zanny as her live-in sitter. After Tony is back in town, he notices that Casey is starting to have nightmares. She is waking up shaking, in cold sweats. One night, Tony finds her sitting on the floor, in front of the bed in the dark, watching a video of Caylee. On July 6th, Casey tells Cindy that Jeff has taken the Sunfire for an oil change and a tire rotation, and that the gas sensor needs to be replaced. On July 8th, Amy and a few other friends are leaving for their trip to Puerto Rico. Casey is supposed to accompany them on this trip, but at the last minute, Casey tells her friends that she can't leave with them because of work. However, Casey assures them that she will try to come and meet them in Puerto Rico a little later. Casey drops Amy off at the airport in Amy's car. After searching her friend's car, Casey steals Amy's checkbook and forges her signature to make numerous purchases. She goes to Target multiple times, buying hundreds of dollars worth of clothing, food, and toiletries. Later, Casey explains that she did this because she was under a time of desperation. Around this time, Casey posts a questionable image online, a drawing of a little girl that looks like Caylee and a teddy bear hanging from a noose. It reads, "Why do people kill people who kill people to show people that to kill people is bad?" On July 10th, Casey tells Cindy that she and Jeff are out to dinner and that they will be home on the 12th. On July 15th, Casey tells Cindy that she is staying in Jacksonville later for Jules' surprise wedding. Meanwhile, Casey withdraws $250 from another forged check at Bank of America. She also pays AT&T nearly $600 from Amy's account. Casey picks up Amy from the airport, and then Amy drops her off at Tony's. After receiving a recovery letter, George and Cindy now know about Casey's abandoned Sunfire and go pick it up from the impound lot. George opens the door to the Sunfire and is immediately taken back by the stench. The impound manager recalls it smelling like a man they had found who had taken his life in his car and laid there deceased for 5 days. They find a garbage bag in the trunk full of trash, including a pizza and maggots. The car still has Caylee's baby doll and backpack inside. as well as Casey's work bag. Cindy and George call the police. Just kidding again. The two of them go to work instead. Cindy's boss sends her home to handle the situation upon learning what is going on. Cindy finds Amy's phone number written down in the car and immediately contacts her to explain the situation and goes to pick her up. Cindy and Amy arrive at Tony's to confront Casey. Cindy storms in and warns Tony about Casey's theft, saying, "I hope you're rich because Casey is going to take all of your money and leave you high and dry." She finds Casey in the apartment and demands to see Caylee. Casey tells Cindy that Caylee is with Zanny and that it's too late in the evening to go pick her up now. Cindy drags her to the car. They drop off Amy first, then Cindy attempts to drive to Zanny's, but Casey is not cooperating. Casey assures Cindy that by the next morning she will be able to see Caylee. Cindy then drives to the police station, but it has closed its doors for the day. Cindy finally calls 911. In fact, she makes 3 911 calls this evening.
What are you trying to accomplish by bringing them to the station?
I have a 22-year-old person that has grand theft sitting in my auto with me.
So the 22-year-old person stole something?
Yes.
Is this a relative?
Yes.
Where did they steal it from?
My car and also money.
Okay, is this your son?
Daughter.
Cindy explains over the phone that she wants to take Casey in and report the theft, but there is confusion regarding the abnormal situation, so Cindy just takes Casey home, where she attempts to call 911 a second time. The Anthony's internet history is also erased around this time.
Okay, what's happening?
I have someone here that I need to be arrested in my home.
They're there right now?
I have a possible missing child. I have a 3-year-old that's been missing for a month.
A 3-year-old?
Yes.
Have you reported that?
I'm trying to do that now, ma'am.
Okay, what did the person do that you need arrested?
My daughter.
For what?
For stealing an auto and stealing money.
Cindy reports Casey's theft once again and asks for them to arrest her. Meanwhile, Casey's brother Lee is trying to get Casey to talk in the other room. Casey tells Lee that Caylee has been kidnapped. Cindy walks in and finds out Caylee has been missing for 31 days. Casey tells them that she couldn't say anything because she feared for Caylee's life. Casey claims she dropped Caylee off on June 9th at Zanny's and hasn't seen her since. Casey says that when she returned from work later that day, no one was home. Casey further explains that she had been at the clubs in hopes of bumping into Zanny, as she frequented those places. Casey tells Cindy and Lee that she has been sleeping in her car outside of Zanny's apartment to conduct her own investigation. The harsh reality of what may be happening has finally hit Cindy. Cindy makes her third and final phone call to 911.
I called a little bit ago, the deputy sheriff's son here. I found out my granddaughter has been taken. She has been missing for a month. Her mother finally admitted that she's been missing.
Okay, what
Someone here now. We're talking about a 3-year-old little girl. My daughter finally admitted that the baby's in the store. I need to find her.
Your daughter admitted that the baby is where?
But the babysitter took her a month ago that my daughter's been looking for. I told you my daughter was missing for a month. I just found her today, but I can't find my granddaughter. And she just admitted to me that she's been trying to find her herself. There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
Okay, what is the 3-year-old's name?
Caylee, Caylee Anthony.
Caylee Anthony?
Yes.
How long has she been missing for?
I have not seen her since the 7th of June. George, Caylee's missing. Caylee's missing. Casey says Zanny took her a month ago.
Can you calm down for me for just a minute? And I need to know what's going on, okay? I'm gonna try and talk. Is your daughter there?
I'm on the phone with them.
Is your daughter there?
Yes.
Can I speak with her?
Okay, downstairs. They want to talk to you. Answer the question. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Hi. Well, can you tell me what's going on a little bit?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell me a little bit what's going on?
My daughter's been missing for the last 31 days.
And you know who has her?
I know who has her. I've tried to contact her. I actually received a phone call today now from a number that is no longer in service. I did get to speak to my daughter for about a minute.
And you last saw her a month ago?
31 days. It's been 31 days.
Who has her? Do you have a name?
Her name is Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
Who is that? Babysitter?
She's been my nanny for about a year and a half, almost 2 years.
Why are you calling now? Why didn't you call 31 days ago?
I've been looking for her and have gone through other resources to try to find her, which was stupid.
Okay. Can you give me the name of the nanny again? Like, spell it out for me?
Zenaida, Zenaida.
Last name? Fernandez?
- Gonzalez.
Casey later claims that she wasn't annoyed during the 911 call, but in survival mode. Casey tells the 911 operator that Zenaida Hernandez Gonzalez has Caylee. Casey says that her and Zenaida worked at Universal together, that she has known her for 4 years, and that she has been her sitter for almost 2. When asked what took her so long to report such a thing, Casey answers that she has been going through other resources to find her daughter. Casey claims that she had spoken to Zanny and even Caylee over the phone earlier that day for about a minute, claiming, "Today was the first time I have heard her voice in over 4 weeks." Casey says that Caylee even said, "Hi, Mommy," to her over the phone. She elaborates on this in a police interrogation later, saying, "She started telling me a story about her shoes, books. I tried to ask her where she was and she just kept talking about the book that she was reading. When I asked her to give the phone to another adult, she was fine, she was willing to do it, but the phone hung up." Conveniently, Casey says that the phone number they called from is no longer in service. Police arrive at the Anthony home and retrieve Casey's laptop from Tony's apartment, which appears to have been wiped. Casey tells Tony, if they don't find her, guess who gets to spend eternity in jail? Casey is questioned by a detective at 4 a.m., and he tells her that she can rescind her statement at this time and that he won't hold it against her. Casey responds, "That's the truth and I'm sticking with it." The statement includes, "I have spent every day since Monday, June 9th, 2008, looking for my daughter. I have lied and stolen from friends and family to do whatever I could by any means to find my daughter. I avoided calling the police or even notifying my own family out of fear. I have not had any contact with Zenaida since Thursday, June 12th, 2008. Every day I have gone to malls, parks, and any place I could remember Zenaida taking Caylee. I have gone out and tried to find any information about Caylee or Zenaida, whether by going to a popular bar or a restaurant." Casey describes Zenaida as a tall, brown-eyed, 25-year-old woman from New York who is around 140 pounds, with long, dark brown, curly hair that had been cut short, and she drives a Ford Focus. Casey claims that Zenaida has moved 3 times while living in the Orlando area, and that her phone number has changed multiple times as well. Casey says that the only 2 people who know about the kidnapping are Jeff Hopkins and Juliette Lewis. Universal Studios later confirms that no one named Juliette Lewis has ever worked there. Casey is unable to provide their phone numbers when asked by police. Casey says that she has been having issues with her 2 phones. The one that held Jeff's number wouldn't hold a charge, and when she left it on her work desk one day, someone had stolen it, so she had to report it to Universal Studios security. Casey claims that Jeff and Juliette also change their phone numbers frequently. Casey leads investigators and officers to a random apartment, claiming it is Zenaida's, and says, "That's exactly where I dropped her off." Upon little investigation, they find that the apartment has been vacant for 5 months. Casey then brings the detectives to an apartment where she claims Zanny lived 2 years ago. It turns out to be a seniors-only facility. Casey then leads them to a building where she claims Zanny's mother owns a condo. No one in this building knows the alleged babysitter or her mother. The investigators drop Casey off and return to the first building to check the residence list. Coincidentally, they find that a Zenaida Gonzalez had applied to rent an apartment there earlier that year. This woman, however, is not the babysitter Casey is claiming to know, and is completely unrelated to this case. She files a defamation lawsuit against Casey, which is later dismissed. The investigators then want Casey to take them to her alleged workplace, Universal Studios. Caylee tells the security guards at the employee entrance that she had lost her ID and that there must be a mistake as to why she is not in their system. After Caylee argues with the guard for an uncomfortable amount of time, the detectives get permission for them to enter. Caylee walks down the hall, greeting and waving to employees she claims to know. After hitting a literal dead end, reaching the end of the hallway, Caylee finally admits that she, shockingly, does not really work there. She had worked at Universal at one point, but was fired 2 years prior. Caylee later claims that misleading the investigators was a way to pass out flyers at Universal Studios to help in search for Caylee. On July 16th, Caylee is arrested on charges of child neglect, false statements, and obstructing an investigation. While in jail, Caylee tells her parents, "I'm trying to help them and they're not letting me help them." On August 14th, Caylee tells them, "My entire life has been taken from me." I will also note that she says, "You've been a great dad, and you've been the best grandfather, don't for a second think otherwise. You and Mom have been the best grandparents. Caylee has been so lucky." Caylee claims that they are only checking the Florida database, when they should also be checking New York and North Carolina, as Zanny had lived there before. Meanwhile, the real investigation is taking place. In the Anthony's backyard, police notice fresh earth covering a newly dug hole near the shed. A cadaver dog picks up signs of human decomposition in the backyard near Caylee's playhouse, as well as in the Sunfire's trunk. A second cadaver dog, brought in from another county, also alerts in these same areas. The bag of garbage is recovered, and suspicious paper towels are found inside, as they show traces of grave wax, a substance that decomposing bodies produce. There are suspicious stains in the trunk, and when the carpeting and air samples are tested, decomposition and chloroform are both detected. A hair with death banding around it, indicating it comes from a dead body, is also found in the trunk. It is untreated virgin hair and is similar in length and color to the hair in Caylee's hairbrush. The insect activity is also significant, as they find coffin flies and their larvae. As their name suggests, these flies only feed upon decaying organic matter. On August 20th, bounty hunter Leonard Padilla pays for Caylee's bail in hopes of working with her to find Caylee. Caylee changes her storyline a bit. Caylee tells Leonard that Zanny and her sister Samantha physically took Caylee away from her in a public park. Samantha held her down while Zanny grabbed Caylee and called Caylee an unfit mother. The bounty hunter gives up. Within this week, Amy presses charges against Caylee for the theft and check fraud, so Caylee is arrested a second time. Mental health experts analyze her to see if she is of sound mind and body. Surely, they must find a disturbance. Pathological liar, malignant narcissist, attention whore, sociopath, psychopath, a product of her environment, or somehow all of the above? They find nothing. Caylee is asked by a psychiatrist if she has ever been sexually assaulted, and she says no. During a previous phone call with her brother, Caylee tells Lee that in her gut feeling, Caylee is still okay and that she's close to home. Well, the close to home portion of that statement rings true. On August 11th, less than half a mile away from the Anthony home, a meter reader named Roy Kronk calls to report suspicious findings near the side of the road. He calls again on the 12th when he suspects that they haven't gone to investigate his report. On August 13th, 2 officers meet him at the site to investigate. They don't consider his tip helpful and tell Roy he is wasting their time. Nearly 4 months later, Roy returns and makes the call for a third time. On December 11, 2008, skeletal remains are discovered in the wooded area, the same area where Caylee frequented with her friends during her teen years. Caylee is seen hunching over and hysterical when she learns about this discovery, although the remains are not yet identified. On Lifetime's premiere episode of Cellmate Secrets that later airs in 2021, one of the jail guards, Sylvia Hernandez, claims that she felt Caylee's behavior was off, and says that her behavior at the time was like, "Oh shit, I got caught." On December 20th, 2008, the remains are confirmed to be those of Caylee Anthony. I am about to describe the very grim conditions of what was discovered if you wish to skip ahead a bit. Caylee's body is completely skeletonized at this point, due to the months that have passed, as well as the Florida heat and harsh weather conditions it has endured. The area is swampy and full of garbage, and her bones have been distributed through animal activity. Also scattered about are pieces of her clothing and diaper fragments. Her skull still has her hair present. That matches the hair found in the trunk. And it has 3 pieces of duct tape wrapped around it, as well as the residue of a heart-shaped sticker on the tape over her mouth. The sticker itself is nearby. Her body had been wrapped in a blanket, stuffed into a laundry bag, and then into a trash bag. Maggots and insect activity is consistent with what was found in the Sunfire's trunk. The duct tape is proven to be from the Anthony home. The laundry bag, which was sold in a set of 2 with matching tags, is also from the home, as the second bag of the pair is found in the house. And the heart sticker is also likely from the Anthony home, specifically Casey's bedroom. On January 2nd, 2009, George attempts to take his own life by overdose and writes a note to Cindy. As you get this letter, this should be no surprise that I have decided to leave this earth because I need to be with Caylee Marie. She was so close to home. Why was she there? Who placed her there? Why is she gone? Why? George also admits in the letter that he had gotten a firearm to use to threaten Casey's friends in a desperate attempt to find out more information, closing the note with, "Caylee, here I come. Lee, I am sorry. Casey." On May 24th, 2011, the trial begins in Orlando, Florida, and it lasts several weeks. Caylee Anthony is charged with first-degree murder and could possibly be sentenced to death if found guilty. Caylee never takes the stand. However, her family does. George testifies against Caylee in order to combat her defense team going at great lengths to throw him under the bus in every which way possible. Cindy, on the other hand, lies on the stand multiple times. She claims that she used the term "smells like a dead body" as a figure of speech when referring to the car, and that the stains in the trunk were there when they purchased the vehicle. She even explains that she is the one who made the questionable internet searches from the Anthony home, despite her work timesheet proving otherwise. She says that because she is a salaried nurse, the timesheets may be inaccurate. Cindy continues saying that she had researched the dangerous chemicals in concern for Caylee's safety when in contact with things like hand sanitizer and a nail polish remover, as well as the chloroform search stemming from her fear of the dogs eating bamboo in the yard and searching for chlorophyll. And lastly, she claims that the term neck breaking came from a pop-up of some sort. Computer experts completely debunk her statements, as there are no references to chlorophyll found in the Anthony's computer history. The only reference to dogs was a search for fleas, and the only related searches to bamboo referred to furniture. And lastly, neck breaking was indeed typed into a search engine. Cindy's one-time supervisor takes the stand to confirm that the timesheets are accurate and that falsifying one would be illegal. The real Jeff Hopkins testifies in court, claiming that he went to middle school with Caylee and then years later ran into her at a bar once. They exchanged numbers, but that was it, and he does not have a son. Tragically, the foolproof suffocation search is completely missed by the prosecution during the trial and not brought up to the jury, as that one was through the Anthony's Firefox browser when they had only presented the searches from Internet Explorer. Casey's defense team admits that Caylee is indeed a liar and that the nanny storyline was completely fabricated. Her attorney, Jose Baez, who has been in trouble of his own for fraud and not paying child support, who would later go on to defend the likes of Aaron Hernandez and Harvey Weinstein, tells the jury that the root of Caylee's lies and why Caylee is the way that she is her father, George. Caylee's defense not only accused George of sexually harassing his daughter, but they also allude that he is the one who discarded his granddaughter's body in the swamp after she drowned in the Anthony pool. The defense is not responsible for proving their theory. All they need to do is inflict reasonable doubt amongst the jury and attempt to punch holes in the prosecution's storyline. They even accuse Roy Kronk of keeping and or moving Caylee's body and waiting for the reward amount to increase, even alluding to him being the one who murdered her. They present theories that could be possible, and they've done their job. On July 5th, 2011, Caylee Anthony is found not guilty of all felony charges. Jury members come forward and explain that although they don't like Caylee Anthony as a person, there was not enough evidence presented tying her to the crime. The Anthony Sunfire is destroyed approximately 7 weeks after Caylee's acquittal. Dominic Casey, a former private investigator and member of Baez's defense team, comes forward and claims that he repeatedly witnessed escalated misconduct between Caylee and Jose Baez, and that the pair had worked out a deal to trade legal services for sex, even witnessing Caylee exiting Jose's office naked, allegedly. It's likely that the two also profit from selling photos and videos of Caylee to various news outlets. Dominic further claims that Baez told me that Caylee had murdered Caylee and dumped her body somewhere, and that he needed all the help he could get to find the body before anyone else. Whether that is true or not, members of Caylee's defense team have certainly taken good care of her since her trial. Caylee moves in with one of her private investigators, Patrick McKenna. She attempts to start a photography business, and then even starts her own PI firm to help other wrongfully accused women. In a 2017 interview with Associated Press, Caylee says that she sleeps well at night. George and Cindy are still living in the Anthony house, although many don't understand how, knowing what likely happened in it. Meanwhile, their daughter Caylee has friends. She goes out, she gets laid. The life she said was taken from her was given right back. Can't say the same for Caylee. Caylee even calls the police after getting in a bar fight with another woman over a police officer they both dated. Yet, Caylee claims she doesn't go out in public because she has social anxiety. Despite her being seen starting fights in bars, participating in Trump protests, dancing on stage at a Steel Panther concert, vacationing at Disney World resorts, and holding friends' babies on lunch dates. In 2022, Peacock airs a documentary titled Where the Truth Lies, in which Caylee now claims, "I'm a little too honest. I'm blunt. I'm direct. Almost painfully so." Caylee, now 36, is not ever pressed by her interviewer, and her answers seem scripted and rehearsed. Despite her defense's story in court, Caylee says that Caylee did not drown in the Anthony pool. She claims that she was sleeping in her room with Caylee and always kept the door locked to protect the two of them from George. Somehow, George got his hands on Caylee, knocked her out with a pillow so he could violate her, and she passed away. Caylee thinks George dipped Caylee's body into the pool and presented her to Caylee as if she had drowned. George then told Caylee that Caylee was going to be okay and to just act normal. Caylee says, "During the 31 days, I genuinely believed that Caylee was alive." Caylee claims she acted how her father told her to act. As for the scandalous photos at Fusion, Caylee says that was not partying because in none of the photos did she have a drink in her hand. Here's why I, and almost everyone else, thinks that her most recent story is bullshit. Although Cindy and George don't exactly give me the best of vibes, I personally don't think that they have anything to do with Caylee's death. George is a former officer. Why the hell would he make an accident look like a murder? Using materials that could be so easily traced back to his home and dump Caylee's body just down the street from his home? Caylee claims that she was protected for 3 years, then suddenly trusts her daughter is safe with the man who she claims to have been protecting her daughter from, and keeping in contact with him the entire time when there are no cell phone pings to show this. Meanwhile, Cindy, his wife, who he lives with, is calling you over and over asking where Caylee is. He was going to threaten Caylee's friends with a firearm, for God's sake. Does that sound like a man who knew where the body was? Witnesses have said that when Caylee was out on bond, George grabbed her by the throat, pushed her up against the wall, screaming over and over, "Where is Caylee? Where is Caylee?" At this point, Caylee has accused her father, her brother, and Caylee's mystery biological father, all of sexual assault. Throughout my countless hours of research, I've been contemplating regarding my own theory. So here is my opinion, what I currently think happened. Remember, I am no professional, just a woman with a laptop, so please share your theories and opinions down below. I believe this was a multi-motive crime. Caylee once claimed, "If I wanted to get rid of her, I would have left her with my parents. I would have left, I would have moved out, I would have given my mother custody." Not only did Caylee want her freedom, but I genuinely think, as sick as it sounds, that Caylee was jealous of her daughter. She allegedly called off her engagement for this reason. However, despite her not liking the attention Caylee got over her, she did like being able to hold Caylee over the heads of her parents as a control tactic. I think the internet searches show contemplation and premeditation, And I think that the intense fight between her and her mother the night before triggered Casey to finally act out of spite, especially because Cindy was threatening to take custody of Caylee this time, which would leave Casey powerless. However, I also know that Casey is lazy. I personally don't think she would go through the trouble of making chloroform. I lean more towards the idea of her using something simple like a pillow to knock Caylee out initially, and then wrap the duct tape around her head to suffocate her and ensure that her job was finished. The duct tape was wrapped around 3 times, which to me shows frustration and intent. I think the calls to Cindy around this time could have been for an alibi. I can see Casey pretending that she was at work or in her car if Cindy had answered. I can also see Casey putting the heart sticker over her daughter's mouth and wrapping her in a blanket while lying to Caylee and herself that this is somehow for the best for both of them. Casey backs up her car and puts Caylee in the trunk, where she stays as her mother is at Blockbuster with her boyfriend and sleeping over at his place. 2 days later, the smell of death coming from Casey's trunk is unavoidable. Casey calls George to make sure he is at work, then returns to the Anthony home and backs the Sunfire back into the garage. This is where she asks the neighbor for the shovel. I think she takes Caylee's body out of the trunk, takes her to the backyard and sits the bag on the grass, while she attempts to dig a hole. And because digging a hole big enough is more difficult than she realizes and will likely be noticeable, she scratches this plan, which is why she looks clean when returning the shovel. I think she then puts Caylee back in the trunk. There may have been some fluid leaking from the bag somewhere, and she wipes it with a paper towel and puts the paper towel in the garbage. She then throws the bag of garbage in the trunk also to try to blame the trunk's smell on. She drives Caylee down the street to the park she once frequented in school, knowing it's swampy and full of garbage, and tosses her daughter there like trash to rot, and she drives off. Lastly, I think she abandons the car later because she wanted it stolen, because allegedly it was in a shady area. Despite the contemplation, I don't think Casey ever put much thought into her endgame, because she seems to just live her life one lie at a time regardless of possible consequences. Her MySpace password at this time was Timer55. There were 55 days between Caylee going missing and Caylee's birthday, where Cindy and George would certainly take action, so she had to live it up in the meantime. I know the pillow theory seems a little out of left field, but I think Casey is lazy and it would have left a little trace. The Anthony home search was also far from thorough during the investigation as well. And according to Casey, all of her lies have a sliver of something truthful mixed into them. And what does she most recently accuse her father of? Knocking Caylee out with a pillow. Regardless of how it happened, a 3-year-old girl suffered at the hands of someone and is no longer here. And we did nothing to give her death justice. I am so sorry, Caylee, that you were failed by your mother, your grandparents, and our system. I personally believe that on Judgment Day, Casey will have to face God and perhaps be confronted by Caylee.